Welcome into another video. It's A Spiral and Brother. We're going to be breaking down the first 3 days of the NFL Combine. We're going to be doing our winners and losers of each position. Some of them are going to have more than others, kind of just depended on how we felt about specific positions. We're going to get right into it and start with day one.
All right, we're going to start out here with edges. I'm going to say a few of my risers. He's going to say a few of his. And then we're going to go to fallers and then go down to D tackle, then off ball linebackers and tight ends. And then we'll go from wide receivers and DBs and running backs all toward the end. Starting off with my riser, I have uh, David Bailey. I think his overall athletic score was great. His production rank was first of edges. His 40-yard dash, 4.5, which is faster than I thought it would be. I thought it would be around the 4.6s. His vertical jump, I wish, was a little bit higher. But his on-field drills, he was very quick, good hands, quick feet. And then also another one of my risers for the edge position is TJ Parker. I think his on-the-field drills were really well. I think he moved himself to be the edge 4 or 5 behind guys like Ruben Bain, Arvell Reese, David Bailey. I think he put himself in that 4 to 5 range.
Yeah, TJ Parker had a good combine. He looked smooth in the drills.
Mm.
I definitely thought he lacked in the dropping drills where he was dropping and catching balls. He looked a little uncomfortable, so I don't think that'll be something that suits him very well. I think he's more suited to be a true 4-3 DN with less dropping capabilities, unlike a 3-4 edge. My risers were Arvell Reese. It's kind of crazy. You didn't think he could get any better, but for him to run a 4.46 at 6'4", 241 pounds, and look smooth in every single drill. He looked comfortable off ball. He looked comfortable running. Except
He was with the
he
linebacker
was with
group.
the linebacker
Yeah.
group. Yeah, okay. So I was that had me questioning on what. So he is going to classify as an edge to probably get more money,
Yeah.
and he's just so versatile. He looked great in both on and off ball drills. And I think that all of his movement skills were extremely smooth. I didn't think he had any hitches when he was changing directions or anything.
No, it was quick in and out. Two chop steps and he's back into full speed right away.
Another one of my winners I had was George Gums out of Florida. He is a transfer from Northern Illinois to Florida, and it shows on the screen he's 6'4", 245, 33
Long arms.
and 5/8 arms. Hand size doesn't really matter for edges, but for him being around 6'4", 250 and running a 4.66 as a guy who's kind of unproven, as you can see, his production score was only a 58, which he didn't get on the field a ton. He didn't produce a ton, but I thought he looked so smooth in all the drills. His bend was really good, and he looked confident in all of his movement and his planting ability and being able to have that ankle bend that you need to come off the edge. So I thought he was another big riser. As for fallers and or losers, I thought LT Overton did not look very comfortable or smooth running the hoop. I didn't think his 40 was very good, and he just all around looked kind of flaily. I thought that
4.87
his
for him
I
being a
thought
little
that
smaller.
most of his drills did not look good as a guy who is considered an edge. Now, if they're to move him inside potentially at 6'3", almost 280, that could be a better fit for him. Kind of what people saying about Ruben Bain, but I think Ruben Bain just is so much more of a freak athlete in comparison. Even though he has shorter arms, I still think LT Overton looked a little lackluster.
From
So
watching the on-field drills with Keldrick Falk, he's one of my fallers. Um, he looked slow. His bend wasn't like short. It was very wide, long turns. I saw the side by side with David Bailey and Keldrick Falk, Bailey was quicker and he got around the corner quicker. Keldrick Falk, he's going to be a great run stopper in the NFL, but he's just got to pick up that pass rush if he wants to be a higher pick. So I have him as one of my followers, and also Ruben Bain and Cassius Howell as like a group because their arms are so small. Let's go to Cassius Howell real quick. His arms were very short, slightly shorter than Ruben Bain's at 30 and a quarter. Um, being 6'2", 253, and having that short of arms, he's a prolific pass rusher. But when he has that short of arms and he's not a power guy, he goes against one of the top O tackles in the league. He's just going to get bodied every time. He can't get that separation or that one hand push to get around. Same with Ruben Bain, but I think Ruben Bain's just an absolute monster. I think he could move inside or stay at edge, and he'll be good enough. He just won't be a high production sack guy.
All right, moving on to linebackers of day one. My biggest risers were Sonny Styles and Jacob Rodriguez. Both of them ran sub 4.6. Obviously, Sonny Styles ran a 4.46, fastest linebacker in the combine at 6'5, 244 pounds with a 30, almost a 33-inch arm and 10-inch hands. He was, well, Arvell Reese was smooth doing the off-ball drills like the rest of the linebackers, but Sonny Styles just looked like a different level of
Mm-hmm.
off-ball change of direction mover. This is what they've been saying. I think he is probably one of the top linebacker prospects to come out of college since like Luke Kuechly or Roquan Smith, but he's bigger than both of them,
Yeah.
and maybe better in the past after coming down from playing safety. I think he is a surefire top 10 pick now, maybe even top 5. I don't see how he could fall out of that range just because of what he's shown he can do both on the field and athletically in the combine.
Yeah, I could see someone like the Commanders trading up for him because their linebacker core has been shaky. Frankie Louver played great 2 years ago. Bobby Wagner, I don't know how he's going to come back next year, but uh, one of my risers was also Jacob Rodriguez, so I'll talk about him real quick. He had the fastest three cone and shuttle. Um, Even though he wasn't the fastest in the 40, his lateral quickness is way better than what I thought it was, and that was his main gripe was he's not laterally quick. He doesn't shoot out of a cannon like Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles do when determining run schemes. But at 6'1", 230, he is very, very good laterally. He had great hands. His eyes were always up. That was one of my main things of what I was watching is who was looking at the ground on the four pad drills. He was always looking up. He didn't need to worry about his spatial awareness. It was just so good. Um, and he was in the Heisman conversation. So,
Should have been.
well,
He was
he was
the
fifth.
first guy out for
He was
fifth.
fifth. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't have very many losers for the linebacker position. I know you, I don't think, had any.
No,
thought,
I do now.
oh, you do now?
Yeah, I have Torian York. For him being undersized already, he's super young, so he has time to develop. But some of the stuff that he lacks, like athleticism, you can't teach, especially not now. He was short. His the on-field drills, his hips were a little bit late
He was
to
stiff.
flip. Yeah.
He was very stiff.
Um, and also his slow, like the breaks on the ball, like the pointing drill when the coach would point and then they would come back and get the pick. He was slow to break to that ball.
It took him quite a few steps to change direction and stuff. I completely agree. I thought Torian York didn't have a very good showing at the combine, but what you see on the field is pretty good. So I wonder how much NFL front offices are going to look in that. Another loser I had was Heineke. I thought that for a guy who was already pretty low on boards in general, a late day 2, day 3 pick, for him to come out and run over a 4.6 and not jump over 10 feet, it looked a little lackluster. Same with some of his drills. He looked really stiff, and for being 6'1", 227, that's not a very heavy linebacker. He just looked I don't think the combine really helped him. I don't think it hurt him all that much, but I think a guy like this who doesn't have a ton of production in college trying to get on the combine, you would like to see a better outcome for him. So we'll see what happens for him, but I think that his combine did not show all that great outlook.
Shout out to Caleb Elarms Orr. He had a great physical. like his physicality. He was very fast. He had a good vertical jump, great broad jump, good 20-yard shuttle. I didn't see much of his on-field drill, so I have to come back to you on that. But I think he can be a solid speed linebacker in coverage. But other than that, let's move. Kyle Lewis.
Kyle Lewis.
I
Yeah.
watched his film at what's it called? The Senior Bowl. He was the number one linebacker at the Senior Bowl. He was great in covering running backs consistently. Like I could have seen him being a former defensive back or safety with how good his on-ball coverage skills were. Solid vertical, good broad jump, really good broad jump actually, and a solid 40-yard dash. I think it was fourth, and I loved his film from the Senior Bowl, so I'm going to keep watching him. I think he could be a mid-second rounder, late second rounder. But going to D tackles now, my riser is Caleb Banks. He was a freak athlete, insanely high athleticism score for how big he is. 6'6", 330 is a massive human being. He had a 504 40-yard dash.
Which for being that big is moving.
Yeah, it is. And I think he's had injury issues. He broke his foot mid-season in college, came back, and then got banged up again. I thought Caleb Banks did really well on the drills, on-field drills too.
He was one of my winners as well. I thought he looked good. I would have hoped for a sub 540 that would have really pushed him up the boards,
Yeah.
but I thought Caleb Proctor out of Southern Louisiana and Halton out of Oklahoma were both big risers. They both had the top two 40-yard dash times at just over 290 for both of them. And for them to be, 6'2", 6'3", 290 areas and to run sub 4.8s is really good. I thought both of them looked extremely smooth in all the on-field drills. Their hips moved well. They had good change of direction, especially Halton. He really stuck out as a guy who moved exceptionally smooth. And so I think both of those guys looked great and could potentially have just risen their stock a little bit. A loser for me was Lee Hunter. He was just, it was slow. The change of direction was quite poor, but that's not really his thing. He's a big space eater. So I don't think this combine really hurt him all that much. But when it comes to what I saw on field and no pads, obviously it's not in pads, but it should look smoother than it does on the field. Who knows? Maybe he's just a gamer and he looks like that kind of all the time. But I thought that his on field showing was not very good. All right, moving on to day 2. We're going to start here with tight ends. I'm going to start by saying I didn't really have any fallers. The only guy who really you could say was a faller was the Tennessee tight end. He ran a 4.9, but from what I've seen, he really is not going to be some freak athlete that is catching the ball a lot. He's going to be an inline blocking tight end, a guy that helps out in the run, is probably just a backup. So I don't really think he fell. He looked really disappointed at his 40 time, which tells me that he was probably getting told that he was going to run faster than he ended up doing, and maybe his training was a little lackluster for the combine. I had 2 winners, and they're probably going to be everyone's winners. It's Sadiq and Stowers.
Mm-hmm.
These 2 guys ran insanely fast. Sadiq specifically ran sub 4.4, and as tight end at 6'3", 240 is crazy fast. He has hands. He's built basically like a big running back in a tight end body that knows how to run routes. His on-field drills, his route running was exceptional. He broke off routes that looked way smoother than almost every other tight end, and I think he's for sure going in the first round. I could even see top 15.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if someone like the Chiefs, if they find their next guy, which I guess Mahomes needs it, but Kenyon Sadiq, he could go to wide receiver and be just fine. He's that fast, he's that quick out of his breaks, and he's still a really good blocker for being a little short.
I don't think he's a very good blocker.
From what I've seen, his next to tackle blocking, I don't know if that's a thing.
His slotted.
His
like his H-back blocking.
yeah, his H back blocking isn't the best, but
No, oh no, his inline blocking's not very good.
inline.
When he's coming out of a 3-point stance, I don't think his inline blocking is very
That's
good.
what I meant. But his other
His
blockings,
slotted blocking when he's in that H-back position, I can see him being a little better because he's not having to come out of a 3-point stance as a guy who's more of a track guy
mhm.
as at a tight end position. So I think if he were to improve his inline blocking, but then again, if he were to go somewhere like the Chiefs, he doesn't need to do that. Travis Kelce has never been very good at that, and that's not his calling. But he's basically a wide receiver as a slot guy. He's like a Colston Loveland or a guy like Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren, obviously a better blocker, but at the tight end position, having a clear, basically wide receiver at tight end is looking to be such a larger aspect of offenses going forward with
Mhm.
them running more 12 and 13 personnel.
And then Eli Stowers was also one of my winners. Insanely high vertical jump. He looks taller than he actually says he is.
He
Like
looks like
in
he's like
game,
6'6".
yeah. I watched him play against LSU and Tennessee, and he looks way taller than he actually is stated at 6'4". Hands are even smaller than Sadiq's, which is surprising to me. But his vertical jump and broad jump were insane. He's gonna be go up and get it, uh, red zone threat type of guy, and I think he's probably just tight end two behind Sadiq. I don't think he's a first rounder. I could see someone trading up and maybe reaching toward the end of the first round, but I think he is tight end two in this class.
He reminds me of a Jimmy Graham type guy potential.
Just a shorter Jimmy Graham, yeah. Okay, DBs.
Yeah, hold on.
I'll start with Dylan Thieneman. He's an insane athlete. Best safety score. Ran a 4.35. I saw his 4.37, but 4.35 official. His vertical jump was crazy. He's long and lanky. He's got pretty long arms for only being 6 foot. His hand size is whatever as a DB. It's not need to be that good. And bench press, 18 reps as a safety is pretty solid. And only being 200 pounds, he looked really good. He moved quick. His on-field drills were really good.
The thing I think about when I think of Dylan Thieneman is the end of that Penn State game when Drew Aller was throwing that ball and Dylan Thieneman basically looked like he jumped his full 41-inch vertical to pick it off as an under cloud zone drop on a corner route. That play is just burned into my mind, and I think he is going to be probably end up going in the first round or early second just based off of this combine
Mm-hmm.
and people actually starting to look at him with the eyes of him being that early of a draft pick.
Um, my other riser, even though he wasn't fast, was AJ Halsey. So with him, he transferred from Houston. Missed the first half of the first game of the year because he threw punches in a bowl game last year. What he brought to that LSU offense,
Defense. Walk in!
what he brought to that LSU defense, no one really expected that LSU defense to be solid. Granted, it did get bad toward the end of the year, but what he brought in was a level of physicality. I think he was a free safety for LSU, but he's a physical dude. He's stocky. I wish he did run a little bit faster, but I think he was a riser. I think he'd go mid to late second round.
And you can see, I mean, it says his 2026 combine safety rank is first based on production and athleticism score.
Hmm.
I agree. I thought his combine, his on-field drills were pretty good, and for him being 6 foot 215, he's going to be a downhill crunching
Yeah.
box linebacker in the NFL or box safety in the NFL. As for fallers, I thought that Emmanuel McNeil Warren was a faller. I did not expect him to run 4.5 plus. I was hoping that a guy at 6'3", only 200 pounds, would be faster. I still think he's potential for a first round pick, but I think he slides out of the first round based on some of this on field stiffness and speed. I thought he looked pretty smooth, but again, the stiffness, it was a little too much for a guy who I think is going to be a first round or should have been a first round pick if he had performed a little better.
For cornerbacks, um, they all kind of played solid. None of like the top cornerbacks did much. Colton Hood, I think, had a pretty solid combine of guys that actually ran and did on-field drills. Um, the 1 and 2 are still Jermod McCoy and Mansour Delane. For a faller, I think we both have Will Lee. He just for being pretty light and lanky, he's 6'1.5", but being sub 190 by a pound. But running a 4.52 did not help him at all. He does have a good vertical and broad jump. Actually, very impressive vertical jump. Um, and I just wish he ran a little bit faster. Other than that,
Yeah.
he did okay. I didn't see much of his on-field drills, but the 40-yard dash does bring him down a little bit.
One of my other risers at cornerback was Dalen Everett. I did not expect him to run a sub 4.4.
No, I didn't either.
He looked smooth. One of the specific drills that I thought he looked exceptional at was the pedal drill and the flipping the hips. He did not have a single deviation of the line.
Mm-mm.
His hip transitions were smooth. Everything looked comfortable, and his hands were pretty sticky. I thought that he was a big riser, and I could see him rising from the third up to the second round.
Now we get into the offensive side for the wide receivers. So with the wide receivers, one of the fastest wide receiver classes I've ever seen. It felt like everyone was running sub 4.4s. The group that I watched the closest was Group 9, which had Xavion Thomas, Brendan Thompson, Jeff Caldwell, Bryce Lands, Eric Rivers. All these guys just kept shocking me. I didn't expect half of them to be running sub 4.4s. But my risers are Zachariah Branch and Jacoby Lane. So starting with Zachariah Branch, he's short, but he's going to be an insane slot guy. He's super fast. His on-field speed is probably faster than most of the other guys who ran faster than him. He's quick out of his breaks, and he has a really good footwork. And um, he's great after the catch. He can just make stuff happen. They get him in screens a lot when he transferred to Georgia.
Jacoby Lane is a definite riser at 6'4", 200 pounds. His wide receiver drills were so smooth. His
Mm-hmm.
hands looked
So
like
good.
sticky tack. It
Yeah.
looked like everything that hit his hands didn't move,
Mm-hmm.
didn't budge. And being at 6'4", 200 pounds with 10.5-inch hands, it really seems like he is going to be a steal in the draft for whoever gets him and is able to utilize his strengths. One of my risers at wide receiver is Caldwell,
Jeff Caldwell.
6'5", 216, running a 4.31. Are you
I didn't think
kidding me?
I didn't know he was that tall.
I was when I was watching, I was like, oh, there's no way he's running that fast. He's got one arm that doesn't bend when he runs.
Yeah, it's like Josh Allen.
And his legs are super long, but he just cooked in the 40. I was baffled about how fast he was moving. A 42-inch vertical and an 11.2 broad. He is an explosive guy, and I think if you turn him into just a deep ball down the field threat, I think he's going to be awesome. It really just depends on how he continues to develop his hands. As
Yeah.
you can see, his weaknesses is he waits on 50-50 throws to get there instead of attacking them. I think if he can learn to go up and attack the ball at his size and speed, it's going to be like just chucking the ball down to Randy Moss
Yeah.
in the sense of how big and athletic he is.
Carnell Tate, he ran the 40, but he didn't do any of the on-field drills. And that's his specialty is his hands and his route running is solid. Obviously his route running can be a little bit better, but his hands was his number one thing. His jump ball ability was top tier this year in college. But why run a slow 40-yard dash and not do anything that you're good at? Which was shocking to me. And I think Makai Lemon did the opposite, which was he didn't run, but he looked so good on the on-field drills. On the what's that one? The line?
I don't know what it's called. I know it's drill. So they flip and catch the ball, and then they run and have to stay on the line and catch the balls from either side of their body.
He didn't deviate from that line almost at all. Weird thing is they had Cole Payton throwing one of the first two balls as a lefty. Everyone was dropping them.
Yeah.
Kai Lemon dropped the first one, didn't drop a single other one.
Yeah, it was. I think having a lefty throw the ball after having all righties in practice and a lot of these guys, it kind of throws them off, especially with that first catch. But maybe that's a good thing to show that you need a little more consistency with quarterbacks to catch those left-handed balls. I personally really didn't have any fallers when it comes to wide receivers. I thought all of them did exceptionally well. Another shout out is Chris Brazel at 6'4", 200 pounds, running a 4.37, and Omar Cooper running a sub 4.5. Omar Cooper isn't a kind of guy who's going to burn you down the field, but for him to run a 4.42, I think that improves his draft stock and potentially gets him into the first round.
I could see that, yeah. Shout out to Xavier Thomas and Brennan Thompson for running under 4.3.
4.3s. Yep. They looked exceptional on the sprints.
They were talking about Brennan Thompson like he was gonna almost get a 4.25. He got a 4.26, which is obviously just 0.01 off. But Xavier Thomas was a great return guy for LSU this year. I didn't watch much of Mississippi State football, so I can't really say much. But Brennan Thompson's skinny, and you could tell he was just gonna run fast by his first two steps.
He's gonna be a slot guy.
Yeah, it was heavy and it was very impressive for running backs. I think we're gonna round it out here. Talk a little bit about quarterbacks after, but I mean Jeremiah Love, he boosted his draft stock slightly. I think he couldn't really get much higher, but he somehow did.
Yeah,
4.36 was super impressive. I thought he was gonna run 4.42, but 4.36 is insane as a 6'2", 212 running back. And his route running was really, really good.
It looked really smooth.
His hands were very impressive. But I think who rose the most was Jadarian Price. I think he solidified himself as the RB2 in this class. Solid vertical and broad jump, solid bench press. But what I was the most impressed about was his reaction drills on the runs up the middle. I thought him and Jeremiah Love were clearing away the most reactive to that, besides another riser, which is Mike Washington. At 6'1", 223, running a 4.33 is very, very impressive. Almost a 40-inch vertical. His athleticism score was off the charts for running backs. It was number 1 this year. He just didn't have good production at Arkansas because he was running with Taylon Green, who, shout out to him for running a 4.37 at 6'6", 220. Insane. But we're talking about running backs. Mike Washington, I think, is one of my other risers.
Yeah, I think he definitely jumped himself into a top 3 running back. I wouldn't say risers, but he's a draft crush of mine, and I think whatever team gets him is going to be getting a extremely solid running back that they can just continue to mold, is Adam Randall out of Clemson. I remember watching the Clemson-Ohio State game and thinking, oh my gosh, why is Derrick Henry playing for Clemson? 6'3", 232, ex-wide receiver. I think he also played some safety for them as a freshman. He's a little older being a senior, but that's kind of what happens when you jump into different positions and you kind of move around. At 6'3", 232, running a 4.5, jumping a 37 and a 10.4 broad jump and having 26 bench reps, like a 4.35 or a 4.53 20-yard shuttle, I think that he is going to be a draft steal down the board. Kind of like how Kyle Monangai was, in the sense of a 7th round, 6th round, 5th round pick that just explodes onto the scene and plays way better than their draft stock said. I think Adam Randall, being as big as he is and the kind of dynamic player he's going to be after having both wide receiver and potentially DB, if he did play safety a little bit, skill sets, having him out of the backfield at that size and seeing how he moves and runs at his height, he's basically a Derrick Henry light.
Yeah, he also had very solid hands. He looked good in the routes.
Yeah.
For how big he was.
I think if a team reaches on him in the 4th round, I think they're getting a steal at running back.
One of my fallers was Seth McGowan. He ran solid, but I think his on the field drills, he looked very sluggish. He was pretty slow out of his breaks, but insane vertical, very solid broad jump. I just think the on-field drills didn't show me enough. His hips just looked slow. I didn't like it.
He's definitely going to be a thumper and just a, in between the tackles backup, I think.
Mm-hmm.
One of my fallers, if you go back, is the running back out of Nebraska, Emmett Johnson. being a 5'10", 200-pound running back and only running a 4.56 is not a good look. He was supposed to come out and be this elusive, explosive guy, and it shows that he might have that elusivity in his 20-yard shuttle and his three cone drill. But to come out and run a 4.5 plus at 5'10", 200 pounds for a guy who already isn't extremely contact balanced, prominent, when he takes hit, he kind of goes flying. He really doesn't stay on his feet with hits for being a smaller running back. And I think him being a little slower is not a good look. I think he definitely tanked a little bit on the draft.
Yeah, it's not a great running back class either way. Besides Jeremiah Love, there's not really much else down the board. There's only going to be one guy in the first round. That's Jeremiah Love.
Yeah.
We'll touch on quarterbacks really quick. Taylon Green, insane. Haynes King, very impressive, 4.46.
Was not expecting a sub 4.5 out of Haynes King.
No, I was not
He
either.
comes from Georgia Tech, obviously, running a lot of QB power, a lot of read option, a lot of RPO schemes. I was not expecting anything super fast. I was expecting him to be more of an explosive power guy as a runner, but I think he's going to be the next Taysom Hill. A team's going to draft him, convert him to tight end, play quarterback a little bit, run the ball, get some trick plays in there.
I could see that.
He definitely is someone that would be fun to watch on the field.
I think the on-field drills, I think Ty Simpson and Drew Aller pushed themselves up the highest. Ty Simpson was iffy about being the number 2 quarterback with Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik. I just think Ty Simpson was the most accurate. His ball didn't really stray from leading his guy too much, especially on the out routes I saw. Drew Eller had a really solid deep ball. I think he just put a little bit too much air under it, so it just got off the fingertips of, I think, 3 of his deep balls. But the most accurate was Ty Simpson, and all these guys throwing solidified that Mendoza's the number 1 pick. It's not even close at this point. So watching Taylon Green at this combine and watching him play Texas and LSU were the 2 games I saw. Very, very impressive. He'd be the next Terrell Pryor. He's 6'6", 220, and runs a 4.36. That is unreal. Insane broad jump, insane vertical jump. His actual combine, not the greatest. His accuracy was not great.
He reminds me of Anthony Richardson. I think if you draft him and put him behind a quarterback, draft him into a place like Pittsburgh, into a place like, behind Stafford and the Rams, behind, if Kirk Cousins goes somewhere, starts for a year or two, drafting a guy like Taylon Green potentially to
5th, 6th round
to fill in and see what they got in their second, third year on their rookie deal, even into their last year of their deals, I think are good outlooks for how athletic he is.
Yep.
Overall, I thought the combine was exceptional. We had some guys run some insanely fast times, had some insane verticals and broad jumps. I thought the biggest overall groups that had the wins were the linebackers
Yep.
and the wide receivers. I thought those 2 groups looked exceptional and really stood out across the entire board. We aren't getting to watch O-line currently. They're going to be performing today. Look out for that in the next video when we pull up a mock draft of post-combine with a lot of guys who performed really well and might be jumping into that first round.
Yep.
But that's just the opinion of some ball knowers. See you later.